Hello, everyone. Welcome to the USAID Asia Counter Trafficking in Person Summit, From Evidence to Action, hosted by Winrock International. My name is Hermes, and I will be your technical facilitator today to ensure that you have a smooth experience with Zoom. You are at the session titled Working Session, Building a More Engaged Workforce with Technology. We will begin in just a moment here, but before we get started, we want to cover a few technical features available to you today. We're using Zoom meetings to enable as much interactivity as possible. Your participation via chat is highly encouraged, and our team will work to acknowledge and address as many comments and questions as we can throughout today's session. For today's session, we will also be using breakout rooms. So we'll be doing that about halfway through the session, where you'll be able to chat in small groups with our team of facilitators today. To help us acknowledge your questions and your inputs, it would be great if you could please change your name to your name and organization by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your Zoom window, hovering your mouse over your name, clicking more, and then clicking rename. Again, it would be great if you could please change your name to your name and organization. Today's meeting will be recorded in the plenary part of this workshop. Please keep your camera off unless you are invited to speak or during the breakout rooms in order to help everyone have a smooth connection today. Remember to keep the conversation going in the conference community on MS Teams and spark further conversations on social media using the hashtags WinrockE2A and hashtag evidence to action. Once again, you're at the session titled Working Session, Building a More Engaged Workforce with Technology. I think we're ready to get started now. So I'm going to hand over the floor to Araya Pumsaringkan, Private Sector Engagement Specialist at the USAID Asia CTIP project. Araya, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Hermes. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to, again, welcome everyone for participating in this working session. We're very happy to have you here. Before jumping into the session, I would like to give you a little bit of introduction on how the session came about and also a little brief introduction to our partner Labor Solutions, which we're joined today by BJ and Pradeep. So a little bit of background into kind of our partnership and our work with Labor Solutions. So Asia CTIP projects were, as a part of our work, we aim to increase private sector action and engagement to reduce workers' vulnerability. And we've partnered with Labor Solutions to promote the adoption of a worker engagement tool called Attune application. And Attune is one of Labor Solutions' many services and products that they'll be showcasing for us today. This session we'll keep up with the presentation in the morning, in the sense that this morning we had a chance to hear from the panel on the technology solutions about their experiences. And I think one main theme that really emerged really strongly from this morning was that technology is really only just a tool, and it's not a silver bullet that can solve all the problems, and that the human elements that are involved in implementing these technology tools are extremely crucial. So for this session, we'll dive a little deeper into these ideas and also try to continue the discussion on this topic further. So we'll use Labor Solutions real life examples of their cases where they've utilized some of these technologies in their factories all over the world, and also in order to increase worker engagement. And also we'll break out into smaller groups to discuss further factors which can help kind of enhance or deter this process of adoption. So yeah, again, welcome to the session, and I'll hand over the floor to BJ and Pradeep right now for introduction.
Thank you so much, Araya and Hermes, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. This is Vijay speaking from Labor Solutions. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what I have prepared for today's session. So today we'll be talking about how to leverage technology to build a more engaged workforce. And I wanted to talk about this topic from a very practical background. because we all know that technology is very important nowadays, but why it is important and what are the challenges that during the practical experience from the factory's perspective in applying those technologies, and what are the workers' reactions. Those are something that we really want to pay attention to. And that's why I wanted to share with you a case study about our real life experience in applying technology in trying to build a more engaged workforce, and also seek from your perspective about what are improvements that can be made during this process. Let me introduce myself briefly. I'm BJ from Labor Solutions. I'm the head of client advisory services. So I'm speaking a lot with factories and brands in trying to support the workers from their facilities, the workers who are actually working on the production floor. And Pradeep is the senior account manager in my team, and he's responsible for building relations and supporting clients, especially factories in India, Myanmar, Latin America, and Indonesia. So he also has a lot of experience in trying to support the workers and the factories during this process. And he will also share some of his experience during the breakout groups. So I will start by just giving a very brief introduction of the background. We all know that we're in a really, really challenging time right now because of COVID and because of the financial sufferings of the factories. But one key group that we cannot ignore is the workers, right? Because workers will be the direct group that has been impacted by this transition, by this change. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in the status quo in the factories. So first of all, we're seeing that companies, especially facilities, they are more and more reliant on technology tools, digital tools like Volvo, which is I will talk about later in a second, which is our flagship product to support workplace communications. We're seeing that factories are more dependent on tools like Volvo to get connected with their workers and also to seek their inputs, because everything needs to happen remote right now. And then workers are also more willing to express their opinions through a technology tool instead of a face-to-face interaction. Starting from the beginning of the year, which is when the pandemic broke out, until today, we're seeing about 100% utilization in terms of Volvo among our clients, and we're serving almost 200 factories around the world. And the other trend we're seeing in the factory is that the on-site training, the likelihood of on-site training or the possibility of on-site training is reducing. And the factories are more and more hesitant to have this in-person or on-site interaction with either the trainer or the workers. So they are using more and more technology tools to deliver this process. And we all know that capacity building is a core process in the factory, and things cannot stop. So technology has provided a possibility for the factory to continue this process. And then the fourth trend that we're seeing in the factory is that workers have less contact with outsiders. They're more engaged within the factory. And as a result, turning to technology is a very crucial component of their day-to-day communication. And then during this process, we want to build a process of trust between the workers and management by telling them that, hey, look, you don't have an interaction, face-to-face interaction, but you can still trust the management. I want to share with you a very good quote from one of our clients, which is one of the largest garment manufacturers in India, Shahi. After using our tool, they actually gave us a really positive feedback by saying that management has come to a common understanding that digital tools are going to be the future of communication at workplace. And today I want to stress more than just the communication side of it. It's more about building trust and also engagement, how to engage workers in this process. So we will have some we'll have some time for your questions in the middle of before we go to the breakout rooms and also at the end of the presentation. But if you have any questions, feel free to type into the chat group, and then we will take a look later. I want to start by just giving you a brief introduction about our company and our tools, who we are. So we started in 2013 actually we started working with Nike initially. And at that time we were serving the office workers at Nike. So there are all the white collar workers working in the office building. We were providing employee assistance services to those employees. We're trying to give them a hotline. They can call in and tell us about their troubles in life, and we will give them counseling. And then at that time, we realized that those kind of services and support should not only happen for white collar workers. We should extend those kind of services to blue collar workers, because they're the group that probably get ignored the most, probably the most vulnerable, and probably need our service the most and support the most. And that's how back in 2013, we started building an application. At that time, it has another name, it's called WPO Connect. But then I think 2 years ago, we changed the name to Volvo. And it is the app that can be installed on the worker's phone. They open their phone, they open the app, and then they can have a direct and anonymous and secure conversation with their brand and with their management. And their management can also reach out to their workers by pushing out broadcasts, newsletters, calendar events, all those really big things that are happening in the factory. They can let workers know through the app instantly. So it is a way for them to build trust. So besides Volvo, I'll show you how it works just in a bit. But besides Volvo, we also have other worker well-being and engagement tools, such as worker surveys, e-learning, third-party grievance management. As you can see, we focus a lot on factory workers, on minimum wage workers, and then we try to reach out to as many as possible to them through technology means. So these are some of the clients or brands that we're serving. They are using our tools in a very dynamic way. Some of them are focusing on grievance, some of them are focusing on survey, but a lot of them are focusing on building the facility's internal capacity regarding workplace communication, trust, and worker engagement. And then we serve factories in 20 countries. So our tools are available in 20 plus languages. The workers can switch the languages on the app however they want. So Araya just now talked about Attune, and then just now I talk about Volvo. So you might be wondering what are the differences or why there are two separate apps. And I want to tell you about this story. So I talked briefly about why we developed Volvo, because we thought that it was good to support workers, and since workers are on their phone all the time, it would be crucial to have an app that supports their direct communication with the management. So the tool Volvo is managed by the facility themselves. So we would set up the tool on the factory management site. We will give them an online dashboard to manage all the incoming messages from the workers, and also to give them a dashboard to push out whatever they want to push out to the workers. So it is solely managed by the factories. It is the factory's ownership. And then we emphasize a lot on the ownership of the factory and their responsibility over this platform. So whatever happens in the Volvo, it is between the management and the workers. And then, as I said earlier, starting from the beginning of this year, we were seeing a huge uptick in the utilization in terms of Volvo. And then we're seeing that workers are sending so many questions to the management. They were asking, what should I do if I get COVID? Or what should I do if the factory is closed down? When is the factory opening up? They're sending so many questions. And we're also seeing a lot of outreach from the management to the workers through Volvo. So the factory is utilizing the tool so well in terms of communicating all the changes to the factory. One example I'll give you is that in Indonesia, where I'm based, the government has implemented a new policy, a series of labor policies under a context called new normal. So there's new protocol in terms of health and safety. There's new protocol in terms of labor protection. So the management was trying so hard to get those new policies delivered to the workers. And they would choose to use Volvo. And that's where we see a huge uptick in the utilization. So we asked ourselves, it's wonderful that the factories are having Volvo, they utilize this tool. But what if for the factories doesn't have Volvo? What would the workers do if they don't have a very effective internal communication between the management and the workers? And that's when we came up with an idea of Attune. So Attune is a separate app. It's totally independent from Volvo. It is completely free. It is our charity work. So we basically took the infrastructure of Volvo and we built an app called Attune. And Attune is totally owned by us with collaboration of our partners. We have CSR, we have Winrock, we have School to School International, Empower at Work, and IOM, Better Work. We're collaborating with those partners in pushing out the content to the workers. The content can be related to COVID-19, can be related to mental well-being, parenting, homeschooling. We're trying to reach out to as many as workers possible in order for them to receive the content. And currently, Attune is available in 4 countries: Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and India. And Winrock has been providing us a lot of support in terms of stakeholder engagement in Cambodia. So the difference between Volvo and Attune is that Volvo is owned by the facility and Attune is owned by us. And all the content is pushed out by us. And the factory has no say in this process. If they want to use, push out any customized content, they will have to go through Volvo. And the second difference is that Volvo supports two-way communication. So we open up a channel for the management to reach out to the workers and also for the workers to come back to the management or initiate a message to the management. The workers can actually, reach out to management themselves. But Attune doesn't have this feature. Everything Attune is one way. We only support one-way direction, which is from us pushing out content to the workers. So the workers will just be receiving the content. And another difference, I think that would be the most drastic differences here is that Volvo is a paid tool, while Attune is completely free. So today, my case study will be focusing a lot on Volvo because Volvo is a process, is the foundation that builds a two-way communication, two-way interaction process in the facility. And there are just a lot of, takeaways from the practical action in the ground. So before I go into the case studies, I want to briefly show you how Volvo works. And I would really appreciate your attention because this is going to help you in the breakout session where I will bring out some real life challenges to you and you will need to think of a solution. So let me just switch my screen. I'll stop sharing for a moment and I will share. All right. I will share some of the demo videos of Volvo so you know how it looks like. All right, I just want to double check. You can see my screen right now, right?
Yes,
Not
I can
just
see
the
your
PowerPoint.
screen.
Good. Yeah. So the first demo video I wanted to show you will be to imitate a process where the workers will send a message to the management. And how would he do that? Of course, he would be sending the messages from Volvo application. I hope it's clear. So as you can see, we have this really simple app called Volvo and which is available on both Android and iOS. And we tried to make the app really small, which is probably, I think right now Volvo is less than 20 megabytes. The reason that we make Volvo so small is because workers, they usually have, very limited memory on their phone. So if we force them to download the app, usually they would have to delete other apps, or they would have to delete their photos or videos, which they don't want to. And the second reason is that, the data can be very expensive from a worker perspective. So that's why we try to make Volvo as compact as possible in order to facilitate some of the real challenges during the process. So I'll show you as a worker, I will be opening. Of course, there will be some registration process before that, and the workers need to register on the app so that we know, this worker is from this factory. But once they complete the registration process, they will be able to log into the app, and this is the landing page they will see. And I think a very basic feature and the most important feature in Volvo will be the two-way communication, how the workers send a message to the work management and how management responds. And I'll show you right now. So here you can see that there are 4 core sections on the Volvo application: home screen, and then my company, and connect, and also learn. So my company is a place where, factory management push out all the news, updates, newsletters to their workers. And then connect is the place where the management or the workers connect. So the workers can initiate a message from the connect feature, and management will receive that. So how does worker initiate a contact? So they will go to the connect feature. All right, let me lower that. And then they will need to click on the pencil icon to start a new case. And before they start a new case, let me just back out a little bit. Here, they will be able to see the list of the cases they have sent previously. So let's say I'm a worker. I have a question about public facility. So I will be initiating a case about public facility, and then the management will be able to respond to me. But this is about my first case. And then the next day I have another case. I want to ask about my salary. So because this case is not relevant to the first case on public facility, as a worker, I would be initiating another case, creating a new case by tapping on the pencil icon. So I tap on the pencil icon. As a worker, I need to first specify my message type. Okay, whether it's a question or it's a grievance or it's a suggestion. You will be amazed by how many suggestions or questions the workers are sending. It's not all about grievances. We have some factories who were so scared when they first implemented Volvo because they thought that, okay, once we launch Volvo, I'm gonna be getting workers' grievances all the time and the brands are gonna see it. I don't want this. But the reality is workers don't just send grievances. They can send questions and good suggestions. And by better responding to them, the workers can, feel respected by the management and build trust. So anyway, the workers can select a message type, and they also need to select a case type of their messages. So this category, this message category or case category can be customized per factory. So here, because I'm showing you a demo dashboard, a demo app, so it has both Chinese and English, but you can focus on the English part. So we have facilities, we have harassment, payroll, etc., which are all the common things that are happening at the factory floor. So the workers can choose the case category. Okay, I'm going to report a working hour. So I'm going to choose working hour. Okay, after I choose working hour, because I'm going to report a grievance, I need to specify the time and the place of when and where this grievance was happening. So I'm gonna type production floor, just as an example, but usually workers will provide very specific location of the case. And then the worker can illustrate the details, what happened. In this case, as a worker, I was forced to work overtime. So I'm going to tell management about this. It could be like by my supervisor or by my floor manager. And then I can click the send button and this case will be sent out. And as a worker, I will be getting an automatic notification saying that thank you for contacting our company and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And remember, this message will go directly to the management without going through any third party. We won't be seeing it. Of course, the data is in our server in that sense, but on the surface, we won't be seeing it. The brand won't be seeing it. The factory is the owner of this process. and it is very important to notice because we're going to talk about the factors that make this process successful. So as a worker, okay, so this is how the worker utilizes Volvo as a grievance reporting or question or request submission channel. And from a management perspective, what do I see? So I'm seeing myself as the HR or CSR manager in the factory. So I'm showing you right now what you're seeing is the Volvo online dashboard. This is the tool that we give to the management. Workers won't be seeing this dashboard, only management will. And it is just a simple URL. The management will just go to this URL and they will type in their username and password, which are customized for them. And then they will log in. And once they log in, they will be seeing their factory dashboard. And this dashboard is only for this factory. And then you can see a list of features on the left sidebar. And the connect feature is where the management is seeing all the messages from the workers. And we also have some of the company HR features, for example, company posts, survey, calendar events, worker FAQ, etc. And we also have reporting. And then right now we also have e-learning, but e-learning is uploaded from our backend. So you're not seeing the e-learning on the dashboard. But I'll show you how the management sees workers' message and how they respond to it. I'm a management. I will go to the connect feature. And first I'm seeing is a search field. So because the factory is managing so many cases, so many messages from the workers, they will be able to search or locate any cases using any of the fields here. So you can see there's urgency level, new message date. This is to help the factory to locate a specific case in case they want to further explore what is going on with that case. And then if I scroll down, I'll be able to see, sorry, the video is slower than my explanation. And then when they scroll down, they will be able to see the list of messages or cases sent by the workers. We give different icons for different message types. So for example, if it's a grievance, we give it a flag because it's pretty sure it's a red flag in the factory. And then for questions, we have a question mark, etc. So if you click on the case, you will be able to see the message that the worker has just sent. I was forced to work overtime. And if you look into the worker's detail, the only identifiable personal information or demographic information about the worker will be his department. Notice, we are not showing any other demographic or identifiable information of this worker because we need to ensure this two-way communication process is entirely anonymous. And the reason that we're showcasing the department name is because this will help the factory to locate where this problem or issue is actually happening. And we also have some protective measure actually. So if a department has less than 25 workers, we won't be even showing the department name. So you can also spot from this worker, his previous cases. So for this particular worker, he has sent 2 cases in addition to this case. So the management can go to any other case of this worker. And further scroll down, the management needs to do some management about this case. And this is actually where the most valuable data is generated. So the management will need to click the edit button, and then he needs to define the urgency level of this case. If it's urgent, then someone in the factory, which we call emergency PIC parting in charge, will be getting a notification asking them to process this case ASAP. So it's sort of like an alert function. And then the management can also change the message type or the case category of this case. So for example, if the management thinks that this case is not about working hours, it's actually about public facility, then he will be able to change that. And then the one notable feature about Volvo is that the platform allows multiple management to work on one case at the same time. If you have experience in some of the Southeast Asian or South Asian factories, you will know how big the factory is, 50,000 workers sometimes. So we have a very, very big management team, and they have very, very specific functionalities. So sometimes when the management is seeing a case, it might not be falling into their jurisdiction or responsibility. So what he can do is to pass on this case to another management who can also manage this dashboard. So he just needs to choose from the drop down an agent to identify which department and which agent he would like to continue working on the case. This actually ensures that the case is being taken care of by the most appropriate person. So let's just assume this management gets his case, falling into his jurisdiction. And after he manages, identifies all the necessary fields of the case, he needs to click save. And then he will need to scroll down and provide a feedback to the workers. So he can just tell the workers we're working on it, or he can directly provide a solution. And then he will need to send it out. We really emphasize on the response time of during this process, because the sooner the management responds, the more likelihood that more likely that the workers will continue sending follow-up messages. So we actually set up some KPIs for our clients to ask them to respond to the workers in a more timely fashion. So this is where the management will be able to respond to the workers. And then from a worker's perspective, they will be able to see the responses immediately on their mobile application. So once they click on the app, they will be able to get the notification, or if they have already allowed push notification on the mobile application, they will directly be getting it on their main screen of their phone. So they click into their case and they will be able to see the management response here, very direct. So there are several ways for the workers to follow up. If they're satisfied, they can just leave it as is, and the management will close the case when he thinks that the case is properly resolved. Or the workers can keep following up by asking more questions. Or if he's not satisfied with the resolution, he can reopen the case and continue asking questions. So in this process, we allow management and workers to have unlimited communication regarding one topic until it is properly resolved and satisfied by the workers. In addition to the two-way communication channel, another very, very important feature within Volvo is the HR feature, company HR feature. Because we know that after spotting or identifying issues at the production floor, mostly from the connect feature, the management needs to think of a way to close the loop, right? They need to think of a way to resolve the issue and applying changes if necessary. And once the changes are applied, it is very, very important for the management to communicate these changes back to the workers. We have seen some real cases where the management have implemented changes, but they have never told the workers. So the workers don't know. And then in this case, Volvo provides a really convenient platform for the management to notify the workers. So they can go to the company post and select whether they want to broadcast newsletters or broadcast to the workers. Or they can also send out surveys to the workers to ask them about any opinions, opinions about any matter in the factory. Or they can also push out some calendar events for workers to attend. So this is a way for the workers, for the management to respond to the workers, proactively reach out to workers with any changes that are happening to the factory. And then from the worker perspective, they will be able to see the push out notification or the content by the factory in the My Company section. They will be able to go into the newsletter to see any newsletters published by the company, or they can go to the survey to take the survey, or they can also see broadcasts. So Volvo provides a really convenient way for management to reach out to the workers in a timely fashion. I think we are a little bit due within the time constraint. So I'm going to proceed to my case study, but I hope you already got an idea of how Volvo works. And I will continue talking about my case study because that actually derived from a real factory experience in utilizing the Volvo in their factory life. So I'm going to show you my case study. So among the 200 clients, factories that we're serving worldwide, most of them are very big. So we're talking about a case study from a Vietnam-based factory. It's a factory that has 16,000 workers. And before they implemented Volvo technology, they had a very, very traditional grievance line. So they started with a mailbox. They have this little box hanging out in the entrance of the factory, and workers can just, you know, toss any letters with anything they want to say in that box. And the factory told us that they would assign someone to open the box regularly, but we don't know whether it actually happened or not. And then a few months later, they think that the box was not useful, so they started a hotline. So they would assign a person from the HR department and then assign a fixed standard number for the workers, and the workers can pick up their phone and just call that number, and someone will pick up and answer. However, none of them works. So if they look at the data within a 1-year time span, among 16,000 workers, they only got 60 messages, and 60 messages from the inbox and 21 from their hotline. So the management came to us and asked, you know, is there any solution that you can provide us to increase workers' willingness to communicate with us? Because obviously, these traditional grievance mechanisms were not working. So we actually went to the factory, we sat down with them, and we examined the data, and we also examined the process. We want to understand why workers were not willing to utilize those features, utilize the traditional means of grievances. And then we hosted some focus group discussions with workers, and the workers brought up some problems. First of all, they were afraid to be seen, because if you go to the box, everybody will see you, right? Even though you don't type your name on the letter, you don't write your name down, people will still see you. They were afraid to be identified. And also, when they call the person, someone from HR, usually the voice can be pretty recognizable. So they're also afraid to be recognized. That's the first concern from the workers, very legitimate concern. And the second is that workers rarely heard back. So the workers, they express their concerns. They ask their questions through these means, but there is no way to get back to them, right? The management won't know who sent these messages, who called, right? Even if the management comes up with a solution, they have no way to reach out back to the workers to deliver the solution. So that's the second problem, that workers were not willing to use the system. And the third problem is that workers did not see action, right? That actually involves a much bigger problem, which is when the workers were using traditional means of grievances, the management will have to organize or compile the data themselves. They will have to note down, okay, each of the questions, which category is this question? Is it about wages or is it about fire safety? They will have to do all the manual work. And because of this laborsome work, the management does not want to do it. Okay, so no one is in the management is responsible for looking into the data, having a good picture about what is going on in the factory. That is the ultimate problem. The workers didn't think that their express of concerns would make any difference, so they would just stop saying. And then once they implemented Volvo, and Volvo is helping them to address some of the long-term and as well as short-term issues. First of all, Volvo helps them to address the anonymity issues. As you can see in my demo, there is no identifiable information for the workers. So workers are not afraid to be, to be seen or reviewed. And the second is that there is a clear response and handling process. The management needs to first find the right person to handle this case and then deliver a proper response, and then find out the solution and close this case after the solution is properly delivered to the workers. So there is a closed loop of cycle. And then the third is that Volvo actually provides channels and tools for the follow-up actions to be delivered back to the workers, right? Workers are aware that there are so many changes happening in the factory, and my input is actually making a difference. So they're more willing to utilize the system. And then the last part will be, there is a change of practice and mindset of the management. During our implementation of Volvo, we're actually providing a lot of support led by Pradeep's team, and they are supporting the management to change their behavior about responding to the workers and how to deliver your changes back to the workers. There's some good practices there that the management is using to gain back the trust of their workers. So we're seeing some immediate results after 1 year the factory has utilized the Volvo. We're seeing an extreme boost in employees' willingness to communicate. That is demonstrated by the numbers on the paper. We're seeing 1,417 messages from those workers. That's about 7,000% annual increase in the incoming messages. And it is also about convenience, right? I mean, the workers can just pick up their phone and send a grievance or questions without being afraid to be identified. And then we're also seeing a 90% reduction in response time to workers' questions and complaints. So because it's also very convenient for the management, they just need to respond from the dashboard. But these are just some immediate results. What we're really focusing on is the long-term changes that are happening, because we want the technology to be a host of change of management attitude and behavior, because that's how it's going to be sustainable. So we're seeing an easier and systematic communication. It has a lot to do with the process of Volvo that actually sets an SOP for the factory to handle workers' grievances and questions. And we're also providing the management a very faster identification, handling, and resolution of the issues, because everybody can communicate just on the platform itself. There's no need to have lengthy meetings, to work out solutions. Things can happen, changes can happen pretty quickly. And then we're also seeing a data-based solution. Whatever solutions or changes that the management is making, they're based on data. And I would really want to show you how they take the data back into the factory slides. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see how our report looks like. Sorry. So what I'm showing you, Araya, I just want to confirm again. Can you see my?
Yes, I can see really well.
Okay,
thank you.
Good. So what I'm showing you is the reporting on our Volvo dashboard. So just a very brief overview of what data points that our reporting is presenting to the management. So first of all, we have the incoming messages. Here you can see very clearly within your factory how many people are using Volvo from which channels. We have SMS, we have app, we also have WeChat. So the workers can utilize all three channels to submit their questions. We're seeing a span of, in a time span, how many messages you're getting. You can actually zoom in and zoom out to see the distribution of message types or question or reports or, suggestions. And then this part will be the core part where, the management can make good decisions, which is what is the trend that is going on in your factory? We're seeing that in this factory, almost 50% of the cases are related to facilities. So the management needs to look deeper into the issue. What happened with their facility? Okay, why are workers not satisfied? What is going on? So the follow-up action they can take is that they go to Volvo, they create a survey about facility, ask about further information from the workers. Is it toilet? Is it canteen? Or they can look into the raw data, the actual message that are sent by the workers to understand where the issues are, and then they can apply changes. And then they can also see overtime data. So we list 5 top categories that are commonly reported by the workers. So the management can zoom in and zoom out and see what are the case type changes, the trend of each case type over a period of selected time. Beyond that, we also provide a data regarding management behavior, how management is responding to workers' messages. So we have a ratio of how many incoming messages which are sent by the workers compared to how many outgoing messages sent by the management. Sometimes we are seeing in the factory where workers will send one message and the management will respond with one message, and then the management will close the case. That's it. There is no ongoing conversation. So that gives us a valuable feedback that, usually in those cases, workers won't be satisfied because they want to know more. They want to know what management has done to address their concerns. So what we hope is to see a more ongoing conversation and a larger ratio of outgoing messages which are sent by the management to the incoming messages which are sent by the workers. And then we can also see a case satisfaction, how satisfied are workers regarding the resolution of the cases. And then we can also see how long it takes for the management to respond and resolve the cases. That is good data for us to see how serious management is during this process. So these are all very valuable data points that can help the management to make smarter decisions regarding the changes. And sorry, I need to share my screen again. And then this is what I refer to as a long-term changes. So during this process, the management can take valuable data and based on those data, because the data reflects what's going on in the factory, and they can make applicable solutions, and they can deliver those messages back to the workers and keep them informed what has been changed, what is going on in the factory. And that is the process to build a stronger work culture and employee engagement, because employee feels that their voices are being heard, they are respected, management cares about their opinion. So this whole worker engagement cycle is something that we try to emphasize in our real life practice. However, we're seeing some challenges during the implementation of our tool. It's not all rainbow and sunny days, right? We have a lot of pushbacks at the beginning from the factories, not just from the factories, from the workers as well. And there are practical challenges and also mindset related challenges to prevent us from implementing this tool in a really efficient way. And that's when I want you guys to be breaking out into different groups to talk about the challenges. I'm not sure how many of you have real factory experience or have actually been to a factory in emerging markets. I'm not talking about high-tech factories in US or in Europe. I'm talking about garment, footwear factories in Bangladesh or in Myanmar or in Indonesia, where I'm based, or in China. So the workers have literally, probably some of them don't have smartphone, or some of them don't have a very good understanding of technology. So we're actually seeing a lot of pushback from the management. So please think from a factory's management and workers' perspective and bring up some interesting points about the challenges that you would foresee during this implementation process. And what would you do about it? What is your potential solutions? You don't need to be very specific. It's a brainstorming section. So feel free to share your ideas. Hermes, shall we break into groups right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.
Sort of a cooperation or collaboration on working on the cases. So that is during the Volvo has launched. And before Volvo is actually implemented in the facility, we encourage the management to have sort of a steering committee. We tell the management, the committee should comprise of both workers and the management. And then there needs to be a very clear communication about the functionalities of Volvo, how Volvo works, what is the management process of Volvo. So it needs to be really discussed thoroughly with workers, make sure we have their buy-in before the system is launched.
So yeah, it's about the factories that are using Volvo. So are they suppliers to the brands that you're working with? And like, if yes, what are the key drivers for them to improve worker engagement? Is it compliance or standards?
When we first started Volvo, I'll just be very honest with you. Most of the clients back in 2013, they launched Volvo because of a brand requirement. Most of factories all had a very traditional compliance mindset, right? They only want to check a box of the brand's requirement. So that's why they bought Volvo. But then over the course of these few years, with more and more utilization coming up and with more and more valuable data coming up, we're seeing a trend of the factory's own buy-in during this process. So we're actually serving quite a few of factories who proactively approach to us and tell us, look, I want to use Volvo. This is not a brand requirement. I just want Volvo to become our HR or communication platform because it's easy to use. So we're seeing a transfer of, a mindset. But we do encourage, for some of our brand clients, it's good to have a little bit push at the beginning. Because I think factories sometimes they need a little bit push to be more innovative and more, concerned about their worker engagement.
I think a part of that also, like after you've kind of implemented the application in the factories, do you get any feedback on kind of or data on clear kind of ROI on the application?
Right, we do have a data. We actually did a case study for 90 factories. We examined them for 1 year before and after the Volvo utilization, and we have a clear ROI. But I can't remember the number right now. But I'll definitely share that right after this presentation. I'll include that in our slides as well. But we're seeing a huge uptick in terms of communication and also the ROI per employee. I'll give the data out shortly, Araya, if that's okay.
Okay, great. I think we can go into breakout.
Can it be used in a project or organization to collect comments and feedback? Yes, it can. We have actually a few cases where factory is not the dashboard owner. It's a third party, like an NGO or a brand. So they want to have a direct channel to be able to communicate to the workers. And then they will use Volvo as well.
I would like to show you what we were actually encountering during that. All right, I'm trying to find the correct slides. During that case. So we actually faced 4 type of barriers. The first barrier, I think that was mentioned in a lot of discussions, it's from the worker side, right? The workers don't have smartphones, so they can't use the app. And for that, we have SMS channel for them. So even they don't have a smartphone, they're able to send SMS, text messages to their management, and that will also appear on the Volvo online dashboard. And then the second one is probably something that you would not realize, which is workers do not have enough memory on their phone. They simply don't want to install the app just because they had to delete their files on their phone. And we run a client survey for 200 of our clients. And the most challenging thing that the management is facing right now is to have their workers download the app, because they just don't have the infrastructure to do it. And then the workers do not have data plan. And this is something that was also brought up. So we highly encourage the management to provide Wi-Fi for the workers. Then we actually have a technology where the factory can whitelist our app so that workers can use that during working hours, but not other apps, because management was concerned that workers might use Facebook or YouTube during working hours. So that would be the first challenge on the technology side. And the second part of challenge would be the user know-how barrier. Workers simply don't know how to use the app. They don't know how to download. in Indonesia, when you buy a cell phone, if you're a worker, and that cell phone would be pre-installed with apps, right? There's Facebook, there's YouTube, but then you would have to guide the workers all the way from beginning about going to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the app. So this process is really frustrating for the management. And they also don't know how to use the app. To us, it's a very simple user interface, but for the workers, it's a lot to take in. So that's why we are trying to make the app as simple as possible. And we're providing a lot of intuitive training and guiding materials for the workers to be able to use the app easily. And the third barrier will be the capacity barrier. The management doesn't have enough people to manage that system, right? I've been to a factory in Vietnam. They have 20,000 workers. Their HR team only has 5 people. And the 5 people are managing payroll and performance appraisal as well. So they simply can't assign people to be responsible for that. And this is something that we actually can't do much about it because it's regarding the factory's internal HR planning. But we can give them some very good practice about how to effectively address the workers' concerns and respond to the workers so they can make the process more productive. And then the fourth barrier is something that really brings up the most challenge will be the mindset barrier. So there is a pre-thought from the management that they don't think worker matters, right? They don't think listening from the workers' opinion would be contributing to the factory. So they don't think that technology can provide that impact as well. And then the workers also do not trust the system. It could be based on, the traditional behavior of how grievances are managed, that workers simply don't trust the management. And I also heard some from my group that, the management probably would be concerned that the more messages they're getting, there'll be a, strike or riot, they are afraid of getting grievances from the workers. So these are mindset barriers. And these are something that would require long-term and sustainable plan changes. And that would actually lead to my final slides about what are the success factors or the enabling factors that would contribute to the success of Volvo. Okay, I have 2 factories, A and B, both of them have purchased Volvo. But during this user journey, Factory A would make Volvo very successful, and Volvo would help their workers to be more engaged, while in Factory B, Volvo could probably just become a lame duck, right? So these are the factors. What I'm laying down here are the crucial ones that would have this kind of impact. So I lay out a Volvo user journey here, all the way from the factory, before the factory starts using Volvo, all the way from the end of the user journey. And along this journey, there are factors. So I will start with before the factory actually launches Volvo. The management themselves needs to have a plan. Okay, they need to position Volvo or worker technology to the right place in the factory. Is it gonna be a leading or primary workplace communication system? Or is it going to be just a complementary or supplementary to the current communication system? So they need to have a very clear strategy about Volvo or worker technology so that they can assign the correct people, the correct capacity to manage the system. If it's a primary communication system, then they need to assign more people, right? As simple as that. And then it's always helpful to set utilization and performance targets. So for example, we have factory who aims to reach 50% of app registration among all of their workforce within 3 months. That's good, right? And then they also have a plan about having more workers sending messages. And all these targets needs to be supported by actions. And actions would include having more training, having more material sent to the workers, hosting interactive session, etc. So we need to have short-term and long-term goals about utilization and performance. And then before the factory pushes out this worker technology to the workers, they need to create a user-friendly environment. The first one would be to provide Wi-Fi. we see a huge difference in terms of utilization between factories who has Wi-Fi and who don't. That could be a big investment for the factory, but we need to look into the long-term benefits. And then the factory needs to host trainings with our supporting materials. Sometimes we do on-site training as well, or virtual training, just to help the workers better understand how technology works. And then demo, which is a demonstration, as the video I just showed you earlier, we find it super helpful in terms of building trust about the workers. When workers open the app, what they see is just the app. They can't see the dashboard. They don't know how their messages are being handled or managed. So it's always helpful to show workers the entire process and show them that, you know, this process is entirely anonymous. So believe in the system and use it. And the third one would be effectively using the system. So how long, we look at the data a lot, right? We see that how long it takes management to respond to the workers or to resolve the issue. Those data matters. Imagine if the workers would have to wait 3 months to get response, then he probably wouldn't not use the system anymore. Or he would wait for 6 months to get the case resolved, and that would always be a deal breaker. So how effectively use the system would always be a crucial factor as well. And we provide training for the management for them to better respond to their workers. And how they respond to workers also matters. We have a case where in an Indonesian factory, a worker reports a sexual harassment case, right? And then the management responded with, okay, that's as simple as that. When we look at the data, we can't believe it. This is how the management responded. And imagine you're a worker, you probably would never send a case anymore. So we always tell the management, talk to the workers, respond to the workers as if they're your friends. So that really makes a difference. And the last part I want to mention, highlight, is the closing the loop part. When the management or the factory looks at the data, they would initiate changes. And it's really important that they deliver the changes back to the workers and tell them their voices matter, and please feel free to raise voice again, because that's going to help the factories to improve. And this is what we call closing the loop, and the workers will be really appreciated. I think I'm gonna stop sharing right now. Hermes, are we up to the time yet? It's 3 minutes left. I think I'll be taking some questions. Hermes, do you think that's possible?
Yeah, of course.
BJ, there was a question that I think came out of the breakout group discussion that I had. So during our discussion, we talked about how to kind of encourage users to use, the workers to use. And I think one question was whether or not this should be kind of a mandatory thing or an optional thing for the workers. I mean, there's an advantage in mandating this application, and like the factories or the management mandating this, so that all the workers are kind of adopting and downloading the application. But on the other hand, it could kind of, they would just download it and they will not really understand the use of it. So that another thought would be like, we need to encourage the use as well. And I just want to ask from your experience, like, how do we, first, should it be mandated, and whether or not it should, how do we encourage them to use?
Good question. So remember when I said at the beginning, it was always the brand who push, right? They actually set KPIs for their suppliers. You need to achieve probably 70% of the registration rate. So that's when the factory got really nervous, right? So they started going to the production floor, worker by worker, to ask them to install and register. And sometimes in some extreme cases, the management would install and register on behalf of the workers. That's a huge no-no, right? That's a violation of anonymity. And we don't encourage that at all. We definitely believe that it should be workers in initiative and buy-in process. And we know that the management brands and factories have a plan but still we encourage them to take more time in this. That's why we have factories who have implementing Volvo for 5 years, and more workers are registering and using the app. Because one worker, if he doesn't have the app, he would see that how his counterparts or colleagues get feedback from the app and get a change and see a change in the factory. That would motivate this worker to use the app as well. So this is the impact that we want to see, instead of having, I personally, I would definitely be against this idea of having workers to install the app. And the same thing happens to the survey. We have seen factories demanding the workers to take the survey one by one. They push the workers, and that would backfire.
Yeah.
Right. The workers would simply just give random answers, and that would give a data pollution to your survey. So yeah, we need to give trust to the workers.
Vijay, so just to, it's kind of like a follow-up point to Arya's point on sort of getting workers to download apps. There is an interesting suggestion in our breakout room where one of the participants suggested actually using the Philippine example, that would it make sense if accessibility is an issue, memory, and getting people to actually know how to use an app could we sort of consider embedding, Volvo functions into a very a platform that workers are really familiar with, say, Facebook Messenger, and then getting them to sort of interact through that messenger, through that platform? I would imagine, it's then you have to sort of engage Facebook, and then there could be data privacy concerns with that as well. But I'm wondering if that's something that Labor Solutions have actually already thought of, and what are your resolutions on that?
This is really great. I'm happy that people are thinking about that. We right now can integrate with WeChat and WhatsApp. So let's say if users in China, they don't want to download the app, but they still want to talk to their management, they simply can send a message through WeChat. However, there's a risk about this, because all the messages going through WeChat will go through the WeChat platform. And we have no control over that. So we know that workers would always use an alias, not their real name, for WeChat, but still there's a risk of workers' data to be identified during this process. We can ensure that our process is totally anonymous, but we made it really clear to the workers, if you use WeChat, there is this risk, so you have to think about it. So that's primarily our concern. And right now we're thinking about integrating Facebook Messenger. It's definitely on our agenda.
Interesting. So it is something that you guys have considered, and I guess the risk is that the data privacy safeguard, which is really dependent on the social media provider.
Exactly.
Got it. Interesting. Thanks for that.
Helpful.
I hope that answers participants' questions and suggestions. Addresses.
Any more questions, guys?
Yeah, I think we're at time now. So, yeah. I think we can close out. Maybe I'll say a short thank you to all the participants who have stayed throughout the 1.5 hour. I know this was a longer session than kind of the previous sessions that we've had yesterday and this morning, but I'm very happy that everyone's here, and thank you so much for participating here. Also, we're always kind of looking for partners to help us work on the Attune application as well, just to put it out there, since I know there are a lot of NGOs out here who would be interested in also supporting us in implementing some of these solutions. So please feel free to reach out to both BJ and I. And also, yeah, thank you again for staying with us today.
Thank you so much, everyone. I have already left my email in the chat box and also our website. I really appreciate you sending me, innovative ideas or any ideas specifically for your country, and we can take a look and see if we can implement as well. The bottom line is that we want to make this app as user-friendly as possible, as easy as possible for the workers.
Thank you for attending the Evidence to Action Summit and today's session. Please do join us at other sessions in the summit. You can find the links to the next session in the calendar invite sent to you or in your participants guide. The next session will be a working session titled Cultural and Logistical Barriers to Research and Dissemination, which will be taking place tonight at 8 p.m. Bangkok time in approximately 4 hours. Please continue the conversation in the conference community on MS Teams, especially if you are interested in finding collaborators for the pitch competition being offered through participation in the Evidence to Action Summit. Thank you again for your participation and have a wonderful day.